It's Tuesday, May 17th. This is Gonzaga Nation SI on the Gonzaga Nation Media Network. It's an exciting and important day for at least one Gonzaga Bulldog who I think they'll get a little bit more clarity of where they truly may end up going in the NBA draft come June, and that would be Chet Holmgren, because tonight is the NBA draft lottery. So all 14 teams that did not make the NBA playoffs, they are put into what's called the draft lottery. There is ping pong balls, 14 of them, one representing each team, and there's a number combination that as the balls are selected out of a hopper, there's a category or a certain order that as they're placed, that dictates the NBA draft order. In years past, it used to be the top two teams, they would flip a coin. The NBA went to a ping pong ball system a number of years ago, and they've continued on with that. It's really a unique setup. They've got like a special accounting firm company that is in charge of watching and making sure that everything is done legitly and nothing has been tampered with in any way, shape, or form. There will be a couple representatives from the NBA watching as well to make sure that that is also the case. And if you can remember back years and years ago, I believe it would have been 1985. So when I was young and just starting to follow the NBA, and the New York Knicks got the #1 pick in the NBA draft, and lo and behold, they select Patrick Ewing, who was a cornerstone piece of that franchise for a long time. There was questions about, because if you watched how they selected an envelope out of a kind of a open caged bucket at the time, the question was there something going on with the envelope that corresponded with the New York Knicks that allowing the person to grab it to select the Knicks as receiving the #1 pick? That's always been a conspiracy theory in NBA circles for quite some time. I can't confirm, I can't deny, because I was not there. I don't know anybody with direct evidence one way or the other, but that's just a conspiracy that's floated out there. So again, each team has a percentage of their opportunity to gain the #1 pick of these 14 teams that are in the NBA draft lottery. The top three teams with the best shot of winning the lottery tonight and selecting #1 in the NBA draft, in no particular order, because they all have a 14% chance of winning, would be Houston, Orlando, Detroit. They all have a 14% chance. Oklahoma City, the Thunder, have a 12.5% chance of winning, and it goes all down the list until the Cleveland Cavaliers, the last team to not make the true playoffs this year, with less than 1% chance, a 0.5% chance of winning the NBA draft lottery. So usually it goes pretty chalk through as they announce the picks, 14, 13, 12, all the way up. Usually it goes chalk pretty closely every year. But if something happens and you see a Cleveland, or you see a maybe a Sacramento or a Portland not being called in their corresponding slot early, there's a surprise and somebody, jumped up to the top of the lottery. But when you look at these four teams at the top of the list, and you get excited for Gonzaga players that are now consistently being talked about being in the lottery, and Chet Holmgren, and you look at these four probable opportunities where he would go having the best chance of being top four picks. That's again Houston, Orlando, Detroit, and Oklahoma City. Wanted to go through the positives and possible negatives of each of these teams based on the roster. Now, this is the crazy thing that nobody understands, is just how many conversations are going on between teams about trading and moving picks and trading players and free agents. So you might think there's a huge void or a vacuum on a team that a player will slide perfectly into. They don't draft that player because they've got their eyes on a free agent that fits that situational position, as well as their roster and salary cap flexibility much better. But Houston's a unique team. They haven't played well in recent years. They had the James Harden trade to Brooklyn, bringing in a three-way trade, bringing John Wall back. John Wall never played, still has yet to play for Houston, but he's on the roster, about $40 million a year. And then some of the other veterans include Eric Gordon, who's been injury prone at different times, but if he's healthy, he can really provide an outside shooting spark. But when you get excited, or you were to get excited about Houston, you look at their wings and their backcourt. Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr., two really good young and upcoming wings, but especially with Kevin Porter Jr., you've got the volatility of his personality. Which guy shows up on a night-to-night basis? Could be a good opportunity for Chet Holmgren, because they don't have an enormous amount of size or talent on the interior. Christian Wood may be their best interior player at 6'9", but he doesn't bring the versatility of a Chet Holmgren in my estimation. So I would imagine Houston is strongly considering him based on their current roster makeup. Orlando, that's going to be the one that people are pulling for. If Orlando gets number one, Gonzaga fans are going to want to see Chet go to Orlando, because it's the number one pick. It's also reuniting him with former Gonzaga Bulldog, as well as his high school teammate and AAU teammate, Jalen Suggs. So I think there would be a lot of Gonzaga fans becoming Orlando Magic fans overnight. But, their backcourt, mentioned Jalen Suggs, Cole Anthony, Markelle Fultz Jr., who's kind of worked his way back from injuries over the course of his career. So they did a solid backcourt with those guys. When you look at their front court, this could be an opportunity because Franz Wagner kind of had a great rookie year last year, kind of surprised a lot of people, but he's multi-skilled, he's versatile. I would say 3-4 would be his position. And I would imagine Chet Holmgren can kind of go 4-5 and be a nice addition there. But then you look at their other bigs. Mo Bamba hasn't turned out the way that a lot of people projected or thought he would. Bol on their roster, same way. And then a player that I really like is Jonathan Isaac, who battled some injuries a season ago, but he's very versatile and skilled. He'd be another one of those players in that 3 kind of mold where it maybe doesn't impact Chet Holmgren too much, but you got to look at the overall makeup of the roster and how guys blend together. You move on to Detroit as one of the top 3 opportunities percentage-wise to get the number one pick. I don't, you see a huge opportunity or a need for Detroit for a guy like Chet Holmgren. There's also a fellow Zag on that roster, and Kelly Olynyk. Their other big guys include Isaiah Stewart, former Husky, not much of a scorer, but interior banger, presence, rebounder, defender, and Luke Garza, very similar mold, big, strong. He'll get you some buckets on the block, but he's expanded his shooting range. That could be an interesting, unique matchup where they take Holmgren and they try to groom him at the 4 because Stewart and Garza are definitely much bigger, more physical players. And then you look at Detroit's backcourt, Cade Cunningham, Jeremy Grant, more so a wing, but pretty talented, but they haven't been able to put it together. Maybe a big that some people might have thought falls into a similar category as least potential or projection wise would have been Marvin Bagley III. Came to Detroit in a trade with Sacramento, but his career is yet to take off. I would imagine they would be more excited or interested in getting those minutes to Chet Holmgren. The 4th most likely to pick in the top slot, Oklahoma City. When you look at their roster, I mean, I follow college basketball much closer than I do the NBA these days, but I do follow the NBA because it's a passion of mine, the game of basketball. And you see, you want to follow guys that you've covered in college and see how they're doing at the next level. And quite frankly, there are so many guys on this Thunder roster that I don't know who they are, where they came from. And I say that with a grain of salt because they've got to be tremendous players to play at that level, but it's just not a roster built to win in the NBA at this time. Now, many organizations will take a 1 or 2 year slide where they're going to save their cap space. They're going to gear up for a big free agent offseason, or they're stashing draft picks for a future year. And that's been a lot of Oklahoma City's thought process in the past under Sam Presti. He's done a tremendous job at different stretches of that organization, I would imagine him to have a keen eye in this year's draft and maximize their opportunities, because they did a great job last year drafting Josh Giddey out of Australia, where a lot of people were saying, what is this? He ended up having a great fresh rookie campaign. I believe he had a couple of triple doubles, even. Very skilled, talented, big point guard. But Josh Giddey is a backcourt player. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is another backcourt player. And then when you look at their front court, no names really jump out at you that would give you any kind of pause for concern of like, hey, they wouldn't take Chet because they've got this guy and this guy slotted for 35, 36 minutes at that position. So that could be another legitimate opportunity if they do take the number 1 pick. But again, I've said this pretty much all year. The 3 guys that I see is the clear-cut top 3: Chet Holmgren, Paulo Banchero, Jabari Smith from Auburn. And Jaden Ivey is really, as I watch a little bit more clips, he's starting to impress me more and more. Do I think he can move up into that top 3? It's hard to say. Again, when you look at these potential top 4 teams, they've got some good guards on those teams. So you got to kind of weigh the benefit factor of drafting him and trying to move one of those guys and seeing if you can get something of value that you prefer, which is one of the things that's so fascinating about the NBA draft. But Gonzaga will have representation at the draft tonight in New York. It's always fun and unique to see what players, coaches, front office executives, owners maybe represent teams on the draft lottery stage. And for Gonzaga, they will have some representation with Domantas Sabonis sitting there for the Sacramento Kings. So should be an interesting, fun night for Gonzaga fans to follow and track. And it's just going to start the speculation of where Chet Holmgren is going to go, because I think we'll get a lot clearer picture after we see the order, as well as we start to read some of the articles. But appreciate you joining. Be a lot more content coming out on the NBA Draft Combine, where we'll follow up and let you know how Chet Holmgren is tested, how Timmy, Strother, and Nembhard have played. So for Gonzaga Nation SI on the Gonzaga Nation Media Network, thanks for joining.